let's get into some of the real specifics of important aspects of the lease agreement that we're providing our tenant buyer. Now, note the highlighted in yellow areas here. Like I mentioned to you, as part of their down payment and consideration for me giving them the right to tie up my house for a couple years, maybe buy, maybe not buy, at a price that we've agreed on. They're going to give me some money for that doesn't get refunded, and they're going to give me some other consideration in the form of, if something goes wrong with this house after the first 30 days, you're responsible for it just like a normal homeowner would be. Show me that you can be a responsible homeowner from the beginning. And this is the paragraph that solidifies that. So if you look at the yellowed areas, in partial invaluable consideration of a separate agreement. Okay, so that's what I mean by the lease is slightly tied to that purchase option. So we're mentioning the purchase option here, a separate agreement by and between the lessor and the lessee, executed on same effective date for an option to purchase the premises. So you see how it's buried in here? It's not like front and center on the front of the document saying, I have the right to buy the house. You know, it's a lease agreement, but it does mention that there's an option in here, but it doesn't make a big deal out of it. So if you are in any kind of litigation, somebody on their side would have to make a big deal about it, even anybody listening to it. And most of the time they won't because of the other language we have in here. So what it says is they're going to be responsible for keeping the inside of the premises in good repair, including the plumbing, the electrical, the wiring, the air conditioning, the heating equipment, all the appliances, and to paint walls if necessary, and be responsible for all glass and casualty damage. Folks, there ain't really that much else that you know you really need to be worried about that's going to go wrong during the term of their lease. They're responsible for the maintenance and the repairs on the house, and it goes on further than that in here. I'm just calling out the main systems there. Okay, so this is what protects you. So now why is that important? The reason that's important is because remember, when we go to the seller, we're like, look, you don't have landlording duty. You're going to get to collect like a landlord, even better than a landlord, because it's going to come on the first of the month, every single time. But, well, maybe not the first, maybe we make it the 5th or the 10th or whatever, so that we can collect from our person first. But you're going to collect month after month after month after month like clockwork, because the way we have it set up. But you don't even have to ask for it. We're not even going to be in contact. And also, if something goes wrong, it's actually on me. I'm going to guarantee the maintenance and the repairs on this thing. And the seller's like, oh, really? Oh, well, that's a benefit. Now, you all are probably thinking, well, what if something goes wrong? Now I'm on the hook for that. Well, yes and no. No, because we're simply transferring that to our buyer. Okay, so we're not on the hook on that, especially if we're doing a 90-day close, right? They're on the hook. So if something goes wrong, then they're the ones who have to repair it, not the original seller and not us. Now, let's say they don't repair it. Well, they're the ones living there. Let's say we get it back and it's in a state of disrepair. Well, we've collected a big old down payment. We ought to be able to make these fixes with that. Or if it's a major fix, we've got insurance on the property. So you can feel pretty protected on guaranteeing the maintenance and the repairs of these properties, okay? I will let my buyers know, because I'm the lessor, that I'm not going to sell you a lemon here. You move into this thing and stuff starts breaking, heating, cooling, plumbing, electrical systems, that's on me for 30 days. After 30 days, I don't know what the hell you did to screw things up. But if it worked for the 30 days that you were there, it's on you after that. Okay, so I do put that in there to let the buyer know they're not going to get a lemon. Okay, we're not like trying to pull a fast one on anybody. Now, this option to purchase real estate, this is the separate agreement here, right? So it's like download the lease, download the purchase option agreement. The lease has these clauses in it that I just shared with you. There's a lot more, but I'm just sharing those. But here's the key to the option to purchase, which is the separate agreement. And I've highlighted it in yellow. I want you to see in how many places we express to the buyer they are making a non-refundable option consideration fee or an option payment. It is a payment that occurs in consideration of us giving the right to tie up our property for a couple years. The best metaphor that I can think of is the stock analogy. If a stock is trading at $100 on the New York Stock Exchange and somehow a broker gave you the right to buy that stock for $100 for 2 years, wouldn't you pay some kind of a fee for that? Because you know it could go down to 90, but you don't have to buy it. You have an option to buy it. But if it goes up to 110, of course you're going to buy it at 100. You could immediately sell it for 110. So in order to have that right, it has some value. You'd pay something to have that option. So just like you have a premium that you pay to buy a stock option on the open market, we are assigning a fee to a real estate option in the same sense. It's non-refundable in the stock market. It's non-refundable in the real estate market. Now, the difference here that doesn't happen in the stock market, pay a premium to buy an option. In the stock market, you don't get that money like applied to the purchase price. But here, we're going to apply it to their purchase price. You're going to pay me a fee to have an option to buy this house. If you decide to exercise your option, I'm going to give you credit for that fee as if it was a down payment. That's the goodness of my heart. Okay, that's what we're really saying here. And it's in writing that that's what happens, right? And we say that down here. Notice how we use the term option payment instead of down payment. This is an option payment. It's a payment for the option. Get used to using that verbiage as much as you can, because you don't want to leave the impression that they're getting the money back if they don't exercise. I'm reading down here. If the optionee does not exercise the option or defaults under the provisions of this option agreement or the lease agreement, again, it's tied together, the option payment shall become the sole property of the optionor, me, in consideration for the option granted herein. It says, if the optionee does exercise the option and does purchase the property, then the option payment will be credited to the purchase price at closing. So it's not just like a one-sided thing. We're giving them credit as well. Remember what I said. Insurance can only be put on the house by the owner of the house. Who owns the house when I have a lease and an option to buy? Who owns the house when I've sold it to a buyer on a lease with an option to buy? And who owns the house if I bought it with seller financing or sub 2, but I sold it on a lease with an option to buy? Whoever owns the house is the one who has the responsibility for putting the insurance on it. So no, when we lease option it out, they don't change the insurance. We have them put a renter's insurance policy on it. That's part of our lease. And when we lease option the house, just so you know, when we lease option the house and then we sandwich lease it, release option it out to our buyer, that insurance is still with our original seller, okay? But if we bought it and then we lease option it out, now we have to have the insurance in there. Now, if we sold it on owner financing, like I was telling you, like that situation in Arizona, those guys have to put insurance on it. If I've given them the deed, they can still get insurance without a social security number. So a little bit more challenging, but they can still get the insurance on it. And sometimes I can use that actually as a way to deter them from wanting the deed. In other words, what I'll let people do so that I can maintain my own insurance on it is I will let them pay down the option at the same rate as they would be paying down a loan, where I still own the house, even when they're 60, 70, 80%, equity in the house. I still own it, and I just wait till it gets all the way down to paid off, and then we give them the deed. Now, there's a risk to them for doing that, but I'm usually able to, have an attorney draw up paperwork that's satisfactory enough that they would be willing to do that. But the truth of the matter is, most of the time, these things never fully amortize over 30 years. People move, like I think it's every 7 years is the average. So it's rare you're going to have a property for much longer or have the same tenant buyer for much longer than that. Sometimes you do, though. Sometimes you definitely do. And that's good because they're the ones that are, paying the debt down on the house. The house might be appreciating. That's how you can make fortunes in this business. Okay, this is an addendum from the heavens, and I'd encourage you to read this. It is just so extremely clear that ain't nobody getting their money back if they fail to pay. I'll just blow it up. I might as well. What the heck? I don't have to read the whole thing to you, but there's just a couple things of beauty in here, like right down here where I'm highlighting over here. If the optionee, that's your tenant buyer, fails to exercise his option to purchase, the option fee paid at the time of execution of the option to purchase real estate agreement shall remain with the optionor, that's us, right, and shall not be subject to a refund. Said fee having been earned by virtue of the optionor, me, granting said option to purchase to the optionee. Couldn't have said it better myself. Nothing like lawyers to, really, really spell things out. I mean, you could go even further. In the event that a default occurs under the terms of the option, all option payments will be forwarded to optioners as liquidated damages, it being understood and acknowledged by all parties that actual damages suffered by me in the event of such a default would be difficult to quantify, and the parties acknowledge and agree that the forfeiture of the option fees and any other deposit made by optionee, like the Loan Qualification Assistance Program, are reasonable in relationship to damages that could be suffered by optioner as a result of such default. Anyway, it just goes on and saying the same thing in here. Folks, we're protecting your lawyer. When they see this, they will probably get excited. Say less. We're going to put this paperwork in place if you're smart. If you want to be cavalier, we all are sometimes, then you're taking your own, you're taking the risks on what can happen.